Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we were discussing about sacrifice as explained in the Bhagavad-gita. So in the third chapter, while explaining Karma Yoga, Lord Krishna describes work done as sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work will be the cause of material bondage. So in the 14th verse of the third chapter, Krishna says, the cycle of sacrifice. He describes in 2 verses the cycle of sacrifice. And in 1 more verse, he says, those who don't follow the cycle of sacrifice, what is the result of that? So the 14th and the 15th verse. 14th verse is, Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyad anna sambhavaha yajnad bhavati parjanyo yajna karma samudbhavaha. Here 4 different things are described. First of all, anna is what is called food grains. All living beings, bhutani, they subsist on food grains. And parjanyad anna sambhavaha, food grains are produced from rains. Parjanya means rains. And yajnad bhavati parjanyo, and rains are produced by performance of sacrifice, yajna. And finally, yajna karma samudbhavaha. Yajna is born of prescribed duties. So ultimately, see the link. Food grains are connected with rains. Without rains, we can't have food grains. And rains are connected with performance of sacrifice, yajna. Without yajna, there is no proper rainfall. And yajna itself is due to different people performing their prescribed duties. What is the meaning of prescribed duties? Now, where are these duties specifically mentioned? Where are these duties outlined? So that Krishna says in the next verse, Karma Brahmodbhavam Vidhi. Karma, prescribed duties, are outlined in the Vedas, Vedic literature. Then Brahma means the Vedic literature, Akshara Samudbhavam. The Vedas are given by the Supreme Lord, by Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God, Akshara. Tasmat, therefore, Sarvagatam Brahma Nityam Yajne Pratishtitam. Therefore, the Sarvagatam Brahma, the all-pervading Supreme Lord, is always, eternally situated in sacrifice. Yajne Pratishtitam. So, the connection between performing sacrifice with this food grains on which we all depend for our subsistence. So Srila Prabhupada explains how does this cycle of sacrifice work? Srila Prabhupada gives some details here. First of all, we have to understand that the Supreme Lord is known as Yajna Purusha, the personal beneficiary of all sacrifices. It means sacrifices, whatever they be, mentioned in the Vedas, whatever sacrifice they be, they are ultimately meant for being offered to the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Now he, Vishnu, is in this material world, Vishnu is the master, the supreme controller of all the devatas. These devatas are different managers of different necessities that are required for our existence. Just like Indra, Chandra, Surya, Vayu, Agni. So all of them are actually officers appointed by the Supreme Lord Vishnu who manage material affairs. So the Vedas are directing you offer sacrifice to these devatas who will actually supply properly. Indra is in charge of rains, so he'll supply rains properly. But rainfall alone is not enough. We require proper sunshine, we require proper moonshine, we require proper supply of air, we require proper supply of all the various necessities, natural supplies. So all the devatas, they will supply if we do proper sacrifices recommended in the Vedas. And in that way, the food grain production is possible by proper rainfall and all the other necessities. So if somebody worships Krishna directly, then there is no need for them to separately offer sacrifice to the devatas. So the devotees of the Lord, as was explained in the earlier verse, Yajnashishta Ashinaha Santaha, the devotees, they only partake of remnants of food offered to Krishna prasadam only. So the devotees simply worship Krishna, and therefore there is no need for the devotees to separately worship any devata. Therefore the devotees, they always offer food to Krishna and partake the remnants, which actually nourishes the body both materially and spiritually. So spiritually, how does it nourish? By taking Krishna prasadam, our sinful reactions are all completely destroyed, cleansed away. And we also develop our spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness in our heart by taking prasadam. Also, taking prasadam, Krishna prasadam, makes us immune to contamination of this material world. What is the contamination of material world? The contamination of material world is that every action that generally people do, it is contaminated by the three gunas. So the three gunas contaminate our activities, because of which we become bound up by those gunas in this material world. So if we take prasadam, we are immune to the contamination of the gunas while living in this world. So it acts both ways. Prasadam itself purifies any contamination due to my earlier activities, and prasadam also makes me immune to no further contamination in this world. So somebody does not offer the sacrifice and take the remnants of sacrifice as their food, then they are subject to contamination of the three gunas in this material world. Regarding eatables, somebody may think, oh, non-vegetarian people, they don't have to depend on food grains. But it is pointed out in the scriptures that even those who are flesh eaters, the flesh is available from those animals which are eating food grains. So either directly we partake food grains and vegetables, or we depend on the animals which feed on food grains and vegetables, which supply meat. So therefore, ultimately, everybody, all human beings at least, have to depend on the production of the field and not on some big factories. And field production is due to sufficient rain from the sky and favorable conditions, natural supplies. And all the devatas who control these natural supplies are devotees of Vishnu. Therefore, if the Supreme Lord is satisfied by sacrifice, by performance sacrifice, or by directly worshipping Him, then all the devatas will supply all our necessities without any need for us to separately do anything else. Now, see the link. The food grains are dependent on rains. Rains are dependent on sacrifice. Sacrifice is dependent on what? It is dependent on everyone, all the human beings doing their prescribed duties. Now let's try to understand why performing prescribed duties as described in the Vedas is considered to be sacrifice. Now, it is explained that these prescribed duties are given in the Vedas, and the Vedas are given by the Supreme Lord. So ultimately, everybody has to follow the working directions given by the Supreme Lord in the Vedas if they have to get their necessities. They have to follow the working directions given in the Vedas. So what are these prescribed duties? They are codes of working directions for all human beings given in the Vedas. The Vedas are given by the Supreme Lord, who is the creator of this world. So if we don't follow the working directions given in the Vedas, then there is a discrepancy in our performance of our duties. If we don't follow the Vedas, that means we are not properly performing our prescribed duties. Prescribed means something which is outlined, which is definitely instructed. So the Vedas are giving us the way to work in such a way that we can get our necessities while we are living here, and we can also prepare ourselves to get out of this material existence or bondage. Both are given in the Vedas. The very purpose of this creation we have to understand. Why this material creation? Sometimes people ask this question: why has God created this world? With so many complications, apparently. No, there is no complication. This world is created to satisfy the material desires of the various living beings. So the way the world is created is everyone, according to his desire to enjoy in this world, gets a particular type of body. But among all these bodies, though every body is some facility for enjoying a particular type of material desire, the human form of body, not only can people satisfy some type of desires, they can also understand get the clue that what miseries are inflicted or forced upon us, which we don't want, disease, old age, death, we can overcome all these miseries by actually understanding who am I, who is God, and what is my relationship with God. So the Vedas are specially meant for human beings to understand who they are, who is God, and what is their relationship with God. And by understanding this, they can actually prepare themselves to actually return to God, God's personal abode, personal kingdom in the spiritual world, where there is no disease, no old age, no death, no miseries, no difficulties, no dangers, no calamities, nothing. So the whole purpose of this creation is to give a opportunity for those who are forgotten God, forgotten Krishna, to remind them that you belong to Krishna, you don't belong to this world. And if you think somehow you will live in this world by making some adjustment, Krishna describes in the Bhagavad-gita, and even in the Vedas it is described, that this material world is not a place which is fit for our subsistence, for our living, because this material world, there is danger in every step. Padam padam yat vipadam. There is danger in every step. So that is the nature of this material existence, because we don't belong here. We are not meant to live here. So therefore, we should understand, I don't belong to this place. Having come here, I should prepare myself to get out of this place. Therefore, we should follow the Vedic directions if at all we want to get out, and we should actually so this following the Vedic directions leads to our performing sacrifice. It is identical to somebody who does their prescribed duties for the pleasure of Vishnu. This is very important. Merely doing some duties without caring for the spirit, proper spirit in which such duty should be done. To give a very simple example, supposing somebody is working in a factory. Now, they have to work in the factory according to the assigned work. They cannot just go to the factory and say, I'll do some work. No, it's not going to be effective. Neither they'll be allowed to do that. So they go to the factory to work. They have to do what they are assigned to work by ultimately the owner of the factory. Just like the owner of a factory, he has set up the factory for, let us say, producing some, let's say, bicycles. Now the goal is how to produce a bicycle by so many people doing so many different activities to produce, first of all, get some raw materials, produce some parts, assemble the parts, and then actually a cycle is produced. So this has to be organized. So the owner of the factory has actually organized the whole factory. He has got the necessary managers, and the managers have got their supervisors, and the supervisors have got the actual ground level workforce to actually do whatever is required to produce a bicycle. Now, every person ultimately is trying to work for contributing to produce the bicycle. The purpose for which the factory exists, the purpose for which the owner set up the factory, only then that is meaningful, whatever work they do. They can't simply come to the factory and do some work according to their own choice and expect that they'll be contributing for the production. No, they will not be. The purpose for which the factory is there. Similarly, in this world, the world is set up in such a way that everybody does their specific prescribed duty for ultimately everyone in the world to make progress towards getting out of this material existence and going to the real home where we belong, Krishna's abode. That is the way this world is set up. So we fit in exactly in some particular part we have to play. It is just like when you're driving on the road, you have to follow the traffic rules. You can understand what happens if people don't follow the traffic rules. There will be total chaos. Similarly, in this world, we cannot do or get or organize ourselves in such a way that we will do everything what we require to obtain whatever we require. No. I gave the example the other day that everybody doesn't grow cotton. Supposing we want to have a dress. Everybody doesn't grow cotton. And even if somebody grows cotton, you think they will sit and produce the yarn from the cotton, and then the yarn has to be woven into a fabric, and the fabric has to be stitched into a cloth, into a proper dress. Everybody cannot do it. Even if somebody were to do some few things out of so many things, everybody cannot produce food grains, everybody cannot do every single thing. No. So, just like doctors have to do their duty of taking care of the medical requirements, health requirements, the engineers have to do their duty, the farmers have to do their duty, the weavers have to do their duty, the potters have to do their duty. Only then the society will be properly working. Similarly, this world itself, it is not just at the level of few human beings in a organized setup in a closed setup like a village or a town. No, entire human society itself, and what we don't consider is there is not just one planet in the Lord's creation. There are millions of planets, and each planet has got different categories of persons. Different categories of persons. There are more intelligent beings on higher planets, and there are less intelligent beings on lower planets than the humans on this earth, the civilized humans on this earth. So, in any case, everyone has got prescribed duties so that they contribute ultimately for the overall purpose of this creation, and by doing so, they are provided the necessities, and by following the Vedic directions, they can make progress to ultimately get out of this material existence and go to the original home, to the real place where they belong. And Krishna says briefly that evam pravartitam chakram nanuvartayati hayaha aghayurindriyarama mogham parthasu jivati. If one does not follow the cycle of sacrifice mentioned in the Vedas, then such a person leads a life of sin. Aghayu. Agha means sin, and ayu means his life is full of sins. Indriya Ramaha, then what does he live for? He simply lives for enjoying his senses. That's all. People who don't follow Vedic directions, don't follow scriptures, are not God conscious, Krishna conscious. They are simply living for enjoying. Like the atheistic philosophy. Eat, drink and be merry. Enjoy as long as you are living in this world. After death comes, and when death comes, everything is finished. This is atheistic understanding, and it's totally wrong. Because with death, we don't actually, the actual person inside the body does not die. We have heard this. We actually change our body. So we cannot end our life simply because of death. No. We are eternal. So our existence continues, and we'll be punished for not doing our duties. So not doing our prescribed duties is punishable by the laws of nature. So therefore, Krishna says, one should follow this cycle of sacrifice. Now, this cycle of sacrifice also we have to understand from the Vedas, just like Krishna says, perform your prescribed duties for the satisfaction of Vishnu. That is called yajna. Yajna means to satisfy the yajna purusha. Now, why just merely performing duties is not enough? Why it has to be done to satisfy Vishnu or the yajna purusha? That is because the goal of doing our prescribed duty is not just to get some necessities. No, it is not just that. Because as I mentioned several times, we are not meant to live here, make adjustment and do our duties and live here. No, we are meant to prepare ourselves to go to the spiritual world. So, in order to also prepare ourselves to go to the spiritual world, we should do our duties in such a way that it is pleasing to Vishnu. By that, what happens? Our own Krishna consciousness, our spiritual consciousness, our original consciousness is awakened. Our forgetfulness of Krishna is removed. We are reviving our memory of Krishna. We understand, oh, I belong to Krishna. I have forgotten him. I have got a relationship with Krishna. Simply if I re-establish in my relationship with Krishna, then automatically all my problems are solved. So, there is a pastime of Krishna mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, where Krishna illustrates how some Yajnik Brahmanas, they were doing some Vedic ritualistic sacrifice without understanding the proper spirit of doing this sacrifice. So once when Krishna and Balaram along with some cowherd boys, they had gone to the forest for taking the calves for grazing, then they had left early morning and they had not carried with them some food which they normally carry. So the cowherd boys began to feel hungry after some time and they said, dear Krishna and Balaram, do something. We are being harassed by hunger. So Krishna said, okay, if you want to get some food, nearby there are some Brahmanas performing sacrifice. So for the sacrifice, they would have prepared a lot of food stuff. So go and beg from them, give us something. For we are feeling very hungry and we are not brought any our regular food. So please give us. And beg on behalf of us, Krishna and Balaram. So the cowherd boys went little away from the place spot where they were, where they had arrived, and they had allowed the calves to graze. They were sitting there, Krishna and Balaram. The cowherd boys went nearby and saw one big sacrificial arena where so many Brahmanas along with their wives were there. The sacrifice was in progress. So the boys went, bowed down to the Brahmanas and requested, on behalf of Krishna and Balaram, we are requesting, please give us some food which you have prepared for the sacrifice. And then the Brahmanas thought it is something very strange that sacrifice is going on. In the middle of that, these boys are asking for food. Until the sacrificial offering is over, how can we give food? So they were silent, thinking that these boys, these cowherd boys, what do they know about sacrifice? They don't need it. So they just continued doing the sacrifice. Then the cowherd boys told them that, you see, we understand what are the technical details of a sacrifice. They wanted to tell that because of our association with Krishna and Balaram, we know what is a Vedic sacrifice. What are the different steps? So a Vedic sacrifice, they explained, consists of choosing the proper place to do the sacrifice, choosing the proper time, specific ingredients are to be offered in the sacrifice, there are specific mantras to be chanted, There are specific procedures to be followed, rituals to be followed, and there should be a qualified priest who can properly direct the performance of the sacrifice. There should be a proper priest to perform the chanting of the mantras accurately. There should be a proper fire ignited, and there are devatas who have to be offered the oblations in the fire. Specific sacrifice means specific devatas. And then there is a performer of the sacrifice who's called the yajaman. And then there is the actual offering itself in the sacrifice. All these constitute a complete, proper Vedic fire sacrifice. Now you are at the stage where the initiation of the performance sacrifice is over, but you are not yet come to the stage where the animal to be sacrificed, that stage you have not come. So in between the initiation of the performer of the sacrifice to do this particular sacrifice and sacrificing the animal, between that you are permitted by the Vedic rules and regulations of sacrifice to actually give some food which is prepared for the sacrifice. So the Brahmanas somehow thought these boys are speaking something about the procedure of the ritual, but after all they are cowherd boys. What do they know? So they just ignored. They even ignored the fact that these boys had told, we have come on behalf of Krishna and Balaram. So they were too much ritualistic, and they just did not bother to again respond after the cowherd boys explained to them details of the sacrifice. So the cowherd boys saw they were not responding, they became disappointed and came back to Krishna and Balaram and told, those Brahmanas are not responding at all. So then Krishna explained to the cowherd boys, this is the way of actually going and begging for some food. That whenever you go for begging, you should not actually be disappointed if the person from whom you beg does not give you anything. So that is very, very important. You should not become disappointed. Then he said, now you go and ask from the wives of the Brahmanas, and be assured they will give you because they are my devotees, Krishna told. So the cowherd boys immediately went, because they were very hungry. So they went to the wives of the Brahmanas and told, Krishna and Balaram have come nearby on their behalf, we are asking for some food. Immediately the wives of the Brahmanas, they had heard about Krishna and they were very much eager to have darshan of Krishna. So they immediately took the different kinds of food stuff they had prepared in different pots, carrying it on their head. They all started off, where is Krishna? Where is Balaram? We want to have darshan of them. So they said, come with us. So then they took all the pots, the women took all the pots, and they were being stopped by their relatives, by their husbands, by their elders, but they didn't care. They wanted to have darshan of Krishna and Balaram. So against the wishes of their elders, relatives and all, they just came out with the boys. And the boys brought them to Krishna and Balaram. Immediately they offered their respects, these wives of the Brahmanas, the women, and Krishna welcomed them, and Krishna said, yes, what can I do for you? Then Krishna began to explain to them that, you see, you have left the sacrifice in between and come. It is not proper. You go back because you have to assist your husbands in doing the sacrifice. After all, the sacrifice is ultimately meant for me only. So, through the sacrifice, even though your husbands don't understand that the sacrifice is meant for us, Krishna and Balaram, but still, you go and assist them in the completion of the sacrifice. Then the women began to say that, oh, we have come against the wish of our husbands and elders, so we have no other shelter other than you, so kindly don't disappoint us by not giving us shelter. Please don't ask us to go back. Then Krishna assured that you can actually still worship me by remembering me, by chanting my name, by worshipping my deity form, by offering authorized sacrifices to me. Through these sacrifices, you are worshipping me only. So you go back and be assured that your husbands will not rebuke you, or they will not refuse to take you back. They'll be happy that you come back, because their sacrifice is incomplete without your assistance. So they'll be happy to take you back. Please go. So then they left behind all the pots and they went away. And then when the husbands saw their wives come back, they were so much relieved that, oh, now we can perform our sacrifice. So they welcomed back their wives and they continued with the sacrifice, completed sacrifice. But after completing the sacrifice, they realized that our wives have understood that who is this Krishna and Balaram, and what is the purpose of this sacrifice better than us. We are supposed to be learned Brahmanas, but in the course of doing these rituals, we have forgotten the aim of this sacrifice. Ultimately, it is simply to please Krishna. So when Krishna is asking for something directly, we are neglected and ignored to give to Krishna. Whereas through this sacrifice, when we pour something into the sacrificial fire, the grains or the ghee or whatever nice edibles, actually through the fire, it is Krishna only who is consuming that. Krishna has got different forms. He is present in his universal form in the form of fire. Fire is the mouth of the universal form of Krishna. Krishna has got a universal form in this world. So that universal form, the sun and moon are his two eyes. Fire is his mouth in the universal form. So actually when sacrificial fire, the ingredients are offered, it is actually an offering to Krishna only. What is being apparently burnt away in the fire and wasted, just like some people, atheists, think, when you offer something in a sacrificial fire, you are unnecessarily burning valuable ghee or some grains which can be given to some poor people, or somebody else can actually benefit from these grains and ghee. Instead, you are burning it by putting it in a sacrificial fire. What they don't understand is it is actually an offering to the Supreme Lord, who is the supplier of everything. In gratitude for him we offer. So therefore, the Brahmanas could understand that actually their wives were the more advanced transcendentalists than them, and they began to glorify their wives and began to condemn themselves that we could not recognize the Supreme Lord who has appeared as a cowherd boy, and we thought he is just some ordinary cowherd boy. We could not understand that he is the Supreme Lord who is the object of all sacrifices. So that's why it is said, performing the sacrifices or the rituals is not enough according to the Vedic directions, but it is also important to understand who is the ultimate goal of all sacrifices, that is Vishnu or Krishna, and through the sacrifice we are meant to please Vishnu or Krishna, and then only the sacrifice is perfect and complete. I have a few questions here. I'll try to answer them. Why is Lord Krishna not mentioned in other world civilizations that existed 5,000 years ago? Yes, 5,000 years ago Krishna appeared, and there was a whole society with Krishna as the king in Dwaraka, Krishna as the prince in Mathura, Krishna as a cowherd boy in Vrindavan. Why it is not mentioned in other world civilizations? Because they don't know. They don't know about our glorious details of our glorious civilization. They have got a wrong idea that 5,000 years back there was only some Stone Age people uncivilized like that. That is their wrong understanding. The most advanced civilization has existed since the beginning of creation in this Bharat Bhumi, and that modern day people who are not conversant with history properly, they are unaware of that. That's why they don't know about it. When you say super soul is in every atom in the material universe, so Paramatma exists in non-living beings as well. Super soul exists in non-living beings. Yes, super soul has entered into everything. Matter and the living entities, bodies, different living entities have entered different bodies. Inside every living entity's body also, Paramatma has entered. So he is present in every thing material and everything spiritual. He is entered into everything, and only because he has entered is everything actually working, is everything going on very nicely. Without his presence, nothing will work. Some people sacrifice eating non-veg food for a certain period. Is it really sacrifice? Yes. It is not the prescribed sacrifice or duty in the Vedas, but it is a kind of sacrifice in that we are not supposed to eat non-vegetarian food. So some people realize that it's not proper for them to eat non-vegetarian food, so they may restrict eating. Even giving up eating on certain days is beneficial for them. To that extent, they are committing less of sinful activities. But it is expected that by practicing giving up on some days, gradually they'll be able to completely give up eating non-vegetarian food, and they will start taking only vegetarian food, which is enough for our subsistence and which is easily available. So in that sense, it is beneficial for them, though it is not counted as a sacrifice in terms of doing the prescribed duty mentioned in the Vedas, but still it is beneficial for them. So we'll start here. Thank you.